We do have a couple of announcements. This year, we're decorating the Christmas tree with hand-folded cranes. We will be folding at various events through the holiday season, starting with a lesson today during coffee hour with Margaret Dibble. Come and learn to fold a crane. And we have an announcement from Washira.
Hello, my name is Washira. I am a lot of things. So today I have three announcements. One is for the campus ministry. So this month we're hosting a Thanksgiving luncheon. It's not dinner, it's not late enough to call it dinner. But yeah, we're holding a Thanksgiving lunch for the students of U Idaho that are staying over for Thanksgiving period. Many of them are international students, so we're holding it at the International Programs Office Lounge. And we just need help with Thanksgiving items. So if you feel led to do anything, there's a sign up. We will send out an email. That way it's easy to just find a link. And so just click the link and sign up if you want to donate anything. The second announcement is as part of the newcomers, if meeting up in the library, it's just a debriefing, just a small group kind of talking and getting introduced to what the UU is, but it's not just for new members. So it's kind of it's an after church small group debriefing conversation, a neat little conversation where we get to talk about UU stuff. So feel free to come in even if you're not a new member. But new members are very welcome to come in because you really get to know more about the UU. And the last announcement is the youth. We're having a baking and board games today at 1 p.m. So if you are in that age region, you're welcome. Thank you.
And one more announcement. There will be a new member ceremony on the 17th. Ready to join UUCP? Sunday, November 17th, we will have a new member ceremony as part of the service. If you are ready to officially join the church, please let Reverend Elizabeth or Elizabeth Berlinger know beforehand. You will be asked to submit a very short biography. Also, we recommend that you attend a New to UU workshop before. If none of the dates we offered this in recent weeks worked for you, please contact Elizabeth Berlinger and ask for a link to a short video by Reverend Elizabeth with the same theme. Here end the announcements. We preface our service by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse and the Shih Tzus, called the Cormorant. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us to find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We're hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. Where's my chalice lighter? Coloring. Cute. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Please be seated. So how are you doing? Yeah, me too. We had this little primal scream moment on Wednesday night. I'm wondering if it might help to do another one? Okay, all right, so you can stay seated or you can stand up. We're gonna take a deep breath and then let it out. Oh, goodness. I have been all over the map for the last few days. I spent some time in my head trying to figure out how this happened. I spent time in my bruised and battered heart, where grief and rage and despair, and then this fierce, fierce love took turns having their way with me. And I did my best to follow my own advice. I kept coming back to my lungs, to the breath, to the present moment. I kept listening for the next most loving thing to do, and then that's what I did. I checked in on my loved ones, especially those who are vulnerable because of the identities they hold. I made myself eat. I didn't want to, but I did. And I made myself drink extra water. I got up on the mountain every day and I read anything I could get my hands on that was inspiring or informative or helpful. I came here to lead an evening worship and to facilitate Wellspring. I met or communicated with a lot of hurting and scared people. I went out dancing and sang karaoke. To be totally frank, I didn't want to do that either. I wanted to hide in my bed and pull the covers over my head. But I came out and I clung tight to joy and fun because I think that is so important. I kept reminding myself that we don't and can't know what's going to happen. I kept reminding myself that it is a waste of energy to give in to fear and anxiety. I kept reminding myself that when we do know what's going to happen, we need to be ready to respond strategically, which means prioritizing emotional regulation, not getting lost in all of the rabbit holes out there trying to suck us in. We can't and don't know what's going to happen, but we do know who we are. We know what our values are. We know that this place will hold, this community will hold as a sanctuary and a source of strength. Whatever happens out there, love lives here. Love lives here in this place, in all of you, looking out at your beautiful, beautiful faces. How can I doubt that love will win in the end? So, going forward, let's breathe together. No more screaming, unless you need it. Just faith and determination, peace and love. Will you sing with me? I invite you to rise in body or spirit. This is May Nothing Evil. Thank you.
Now, let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all of the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is the local chapter of St. Vincent de Paul, whose mission is to help local people in need, person to person, regardless of race, nationality, religion, or sexual orientation. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take some time to practice generosity together.
Thank you. So we have a ritual that we're going to do next, but first I need to teach you a song. This is called Prepare Me to Be a Sanctuary, and I'll sing a line, and then you sing it back to me, okay? Oh, prepare me to be a sanctuary, strong and loving, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Let's sing it through all together once. Oh, prepare me to be a sanctuary, strong and loving, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Okay. So rather than our usual ritual of shared and specific personal joys and sorrows, today we're going to light candles of sorrow and solidarity. My goal is to have us bring the wholeness of what's in our heart into this space so that we can hold it together. So each of you are invited to light candles at one or ideally both of these two tables. At the blue table, what I invite you to do is take a candle and hold it and let all of your uncomfortable emotions, your grief, your anger, your dread, solidify into that candle, and then we're going to set it on fire. Oop. Okay. And we need to make sure, I took one from the outside, but we have to work from the inside out. Okay. Then, I invite you to come over to this beautiful green table, and I'm going to ask you to light a second candle. And this time, as you hold it, bring to mind everything that feeds your soul, everything that gives you joy, everything that brings peace to your heart. And then you're going to light it as a symbol of your commitment to goodness and love. Up. Okay. Got it? And the thing about ritual is that you can adapt it to make it work better for you. So whatever's inside of you that needs to come out or shift, let that come forward. So our blue candles represent the lamentations of our heart, and together we create a circle of compassion that's wide enough to hold all the sorrow in our hearts. And these represent our commitment to goodness and love, and together we create a circle of celebration deep enough to hold all the joy in our hearts. Please come forward now. I've got more candles. but we've got this. Amen. I wanted to share as a meditation this poem by Rosemary Watola Traumer. So, I can't save the world, can't even save myself, can't wrap my arms around every frightened child, can't foster peace among nations, can't bring love to all who feel unlovable. So I practice opening my heart right here in this room and being gentle with my insufficiency. I practice walking down the street heart first. And if it is insufficient to share love, I will practice loving anyway. I want to converse about truth, about trust. I want to invite compassion into every interaction. One willing heart can't stop a war. One willing heart can't feed all the hungry. And sometimes, daunted by a task too big, I tell myself, what's the use of trying? But today the invitation is clear. To be ridiculously courageous in love. To open the heart like a lilac in May, knowing freeze is possible and opening anyway. To take love seriously. To give love wildly, to race up to the world as if I were a puppy, adoring and unjaded, stumbling on my own exuberance. To feel the shock of indifference, of anger, of cruelty, of fear, and stay open. To love as if it matters, as if the whole world depends on it, because it does. Let's rest in silence together for just a moment. So I think the service is going to run long. I'm sorry. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom or head out or whatever, stretch, do what you need to. That's fine. You may have noticed that in all of the talk about feelings, I haven't actually mentioned hope. And that's because my understanding of hope is that it's a practice. It's a choice. It's an action. It's not just a feeling. And the specific shape of our hope is going to vary from person to person, and it's going to evolve over time. So, what I'm inviting you into now is contemplating what practicing hope might look like for you. I'm going to begin by sharing a piece by Timothy Snyder, the author of On Tyranny. If you haven't read it, you really should. Snyder is a scholar of authoritarian regimes of the 20th century, and the book is a short, quick read and offers a blueprint for effective resistance. This is from an article that offers 20 tips. I've cut that in half. So hopefully we won't get overwhelmed. But if you start to feel overwhelmed, just stop listening. Americans are no wiser than the Europeans who saw democracy yield to fascism, Nazism, or communism. Our one advantage is that we might learn from their experience, and now is a good time to do so. Number one, do not obey in advance. Anticipatory obedience teaches authorities what is possible and accelerates unfreedom. Number two, defend an institution. Institutions don't protect themselves, they go down like dominoes unless each is defended from the beginning. Number three, be calm when the unthinkable arrives. The sudden disaster that requires the end of the balance of power, the end of opposition parties, and so on, is the oldest trick in the Hitlerian book. Don't fall for it. 4, believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. 5, investigate. Figure things out for yourself. Spend more time with long articles. Subsidize investigative journalism by subscribing to print media. Realize that some of what shows up on your screen is there to harm you. 6, practice corporeal politics. Power wants your body softening in your chair and your emotions dissipating on the screen. Get outside. Put your body in unfamiliar places with unfamiliar people. 7, make eye contact and small talk. It's a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down unnecessary social barriers, and come to understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation, you will want to know the psychological landscape of your daily life. 8, learn from others in other countries. Keep up your friendships abroad or make new friends abroad. The present difficulties here are an element of a general trend, and no country is going to find a solution by itself. Make sure you and your family have passports. Be as courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die in unfreedom. 10, be a patriot. The incoming president is not. Set a good example of what America means for generations to come.
On Wednesday morning, I woke up feeling like I was living through the apocalypse. For a while, I indulged in those feelings of anger, horror, sadness, and shock. All the ingredients of self-pity soup. But the thoughts that surfaced weren't going to take me anywhere useful. In my Episcopalian childhood home, growing up, we had an 11th commandment, thou shalt not whine. So I started to think about what I could do that might help. A couple of summers ago, I attended a workshop offered at the monastery in Cottonwood. It was called Creative Peacemaking, and the instructor, Sister Elisa, had spent her career as a nun in LA, in the gang territory, working with mothers whose children had been killed in those wars. It was intense. Over several sessions, Sister Elisa explained the painstaking process of building bridges. This is work that can best be done one-on-one, and only through compassionate relationships, genuine relationships, in which we are vulnerable and open about our lives and our concerns. It takes a while, sometimes a long while, for others to feel safe being vulnerable with us. How do we develop those skills? Every week, Sister Elisa tells us, go to lunch with somebody you don't like. I didn't want to hear that. I can't seem to go to lunch even with people I like the most. But I have managed to check in with people of a different political persuasion wherever I find them, sort of a practice of opportunity. For me, it's most often the dog park. All these months later, I'm getting a little more comfortable with it. I feel less reactive, less threatened. Valuable as they are, these techniques are just a part of what will keep me grounded through the coming chaos. I have this work, even though I'm doing just a tiny part. I have books to read, including lots of escapist fiction. I have people to love, and people to love me back. I am a part of a community, this community. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we will all keep building the world of our vision. I think that is what faith means.
This is a time of gathering and sharing inspiration and strength. Molly shared that she's feeling resourced and supported by the things she learned at the Creative Peacemaking workshop. And I'm sure many of you have been looking for and hopefully finding things that you can hold close as you rise from the fear and despair and start to move forward. And I hope you'll share them freely, not just on social media, but in actual conversations with actual three-dimensional humans. For me, Snyder, who we quoted earlier, is helpful strategically, but he's sort of hard on my heart. I don't think he's a pessimist exactly, but he's a realist, and he studies history's most heartbreaking episodes. Another resource I find insightful is perhaps a little more optimistic. It's an analysis offered by Daniel Harper and published by Waging Nonviolence. For those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, I shared the link a few days ago. The article is called 10 Ways to Be Prepared and Grounded Now That Trump Has Won. And it starts by pointing out that the key to taking effective action is to avoid perpetuating the autocrat's goals of fear, isolation, exhaustion, and disorientation. I'm going to read that again. The key to taking effective action is to avoid perpetuating the autocrat's goals of fear, isolation, exhaustion, and disorientation. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to feel fear, isolation, exhaustion, and disorientation. We learned that 8 years ago. But we're not going to perpetuate them. We're not going to transmit them. When we feel them, we're going to feel them and then do what we need to turn back toward hope and justice and, most importantly, love. Okay? I need more than that. Okay? Okay. At the core of Harper's analysis is the concept of trust. He writes, Trump is arriving at a time of great social distrust. Across the board, society has reduced trust in traditional institutions. Yes, there's more distrust of the media, medical professionals, experts, and politicians, but it extends beyond that. There's reduced trust in most community institutions and membership groups. Whether from COVID or political polarization, a lot of us have experienced reduced trust in friends and family. Even our trust in predictable weather is diminished. Distrust fuels the flame of autocracy because it makes it much easier to divide. We can see that in the casual nature of Trump's rhetoric, telling people to distrust immigrants, Democrats, socialists, people from Chicago, women marchers, Mexicans, the press, and so on. This is a social disease. You know who to trust by who they tell you to distrust. It's the end of the reading. The first and most important person we need to trust is ourselves. We need to trust that still small voice inside. We need to trust our own deep knowing. We need to believe our inner voice when it tells us what the right next thing to do is, even if it seems kind of illogical. An example. The first time I felt despair after a presidential election was in 2004. My brother was serving in Iraq, and not only that, he was on communications blackout because he'd reported a superior officer for unethical behavior. The guy he reported actually fired a weapon at my brother, who was sitting in an armored vehicle and didn't get hurt. But still, I saw the Bush-Cheney ticket as evil. They were putting my beloved baby brother's life at risk for the sake of Halliburton's bottom line. And when they won re-election, it felt like the ground had collapsed out from under me. In that moment, you know what my still small voice said to me? Get a dog. Get a dog. I kid you not. Now, getting a dog made absolutely no sense. I was balancing 2 more than full-time jobs, caring for 2 rambunctious little boys, but you know what? We did it anyway. We got a dog because my spirit recognized something that my whirling brain and my broken heart couldn't. My whole family needed more joy and unconditional love in our lives. And nobody does unconditional love better than a dog. All these years later, thinking back on that time, I feel kind of naive. As my friend James put it when Cheney endorsed Harris, I'm suffering severe cognitive dissonance, feeling thankful and even affectionate toward Dick Cheney. I've even developed a soft spot for George W. Bush when I heard he was painting portraits of all the service members who had died during his time in office in that stupid, pointless war. He's holding himself accountable. And it turns out accepting responsibility for harm goes a long way toward earning forgiveness, at least my forgiveness. Now, Harper also names that we need to cultivate trust in others. We need to build resilient networks of relationships and a culture of mutual respect and support. He writes, Hannah Arendt's The Origins of Totalitarianism explored how destructive ideologies like fascism and autocracy grow. She used the word Verlassenheit, often translated as loneliness, as a central ingredient. She meant it. Loneliness isn't a feeling, but a kind of social isolation of the mind. Your thinking becomes closed off to the world and a sense of being abandoned to each other. She's identifying a societal breakdown that we're all experiencing, and under a Trump presidency, this trend will continue to accelerate. I know that since the election, every time I walk into a room, I'm scanning for clues. Is that person safe to be honest to? Or did they vote for the guy? Are they gathering evidence that I'm one of the enemies from within? My generally positive assessment of human nature took a hit on Tuesday, but I know this is not good for me, and it's also dangerous strategically. We need to have groups of people we trust to help ground and stabilize us. We need to have trusting relationships with other people who share our values and are standing by to help. We need to have trusting relationships with people who are likely targets so that they know they can come to us if they need help. As for the distrust I'm feeling of people I don't know, what purpose does that serve except to drive us further apart? It's essential that we continue to see one another as human beings despite our differences. Dehumanization is the prerequisite to violence. This becomes relevant as we consider the stories we're going to tell ourselves about how we got here. As I shared at the Vesper service on Wednesday, there's a story, and I think it's a true story, though it may not be completely true, and it's definitely not the only story that's true. And it goes like this: times are really hard. Between climate change and natural disasters, the economic shifts in our nation, and the focus on our legacy of racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression, there are a whole bunch of folks who feel overwhelmed and powerless and afraid and isolated. And when human beings feel that way, overwhelmed and powerless and afraid and isolated, it is a lot easier to blame someone else than it is to be present to those feelings and to accept our role in causing the problems in the first place. All humans do this. Blaming the other is a universal human coping strategy. So when folks gravitate toward leaders who blame immigrants and queer folks and liberals and the like, they are looking for relief from their existential pain. And I can't condone this behavior ever, but maybe I can try to understand it. I can feel compassion for people who are scared and alone and overwhelmed. Now, as I said, this may or may not be a true story, but it's a story that'll help keep me from falling into the same trap, from blaming and dehumanizing those folks on the other side of the political divide. For me, it's less about being what's true for them and more about what allows me to stay true to who I want to be true to my best self. Now, Harper goes on to encourage us to grieve when needed, release all that we can't change, and find our specific path. He groups the options into 4 general categories. We can protect people, defend civic institutions, disrupt and disobey, or start working on building alternatives. To his list, I'd add supporting and helping to heal those who have been hurt. Within these broad categories, there are as many roles to play as there are people who are getting ready to play them. We don't have to know right now how we're going to fight for goodness and justice, peace and love. We just have to commit to knowing when we know, we will act. We have to get ourselves ready for when it is time. Harper offers some other specific pieces of advice to do that. Again, I'd recommend you look it up for yourself when you are ready. Because right now, I think many of us are still reeling, and we don't know what's going to happen. Timothy Snyder says not to comply in advance. I would add, I don't think we should catastrophize in advance, because it's a waste of our precious life energy. We're going to need every ounce of that energy to get through what's coming. And we're going to need one another to remind each and every one of us that we are loved and worthy just as we are, to keep the isolation and helplessness at bay, to help one another be brave in the face of danger, to provide practical support to people who need us, to not just survive, but to keep building the world we are dreaming of, based on the values that are hanging on these walls. We can do it even in a hostile environment. We're going to get through this. Rebecca Solnit reminds us, the fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything. And everything we can save is worth saving. For my part, I'm going to try not to let the political mess our country finds itself in change who I am or how I want to be in the world. I will act to protect the vulnerable, and I will resist not just hate, but complacency and the urge to dehumanize. I pledge to be joyful because joy is resistance. I pledge to be gentle with myself because rest is resistance too. Above all, I pledge to live and lead with fierce, fierce love. Are you with me? So be it, and so may it be. Let's sing together Blue Boat Home. Our closing words come from my colleague, the Reverend Molly Hausch Gordon. She writes, "Get to know your neighbors. Feed them, let them feed you. Watch each other's kids, grandkids, pets. Develop the muscle of generosity like you are training for a giving ultra marathon. Share everything you can with anyone who asks, and ask for what you need. Get in touch with your body. You will need it, and it knows things. Pay attention to what is happening below your neck. Tell the truth. Tell it to yourself first. Sit at the feet of your most vulnerable neighbors and your own most vulnerable places. They have the most to teach you about survival. Listen. Remember your ancestors and the things they survived. Find the resilience that is your birthright and the courage that made way for your life. Practice taking risks. Show up in every struggle where someone is fighting for their dignity, because that is how we will all survive. Learn about reparations and Native sovereignty. Double down on exercising supremacy systems from your soul. Learn to be tender. Refuse to be hardened. Let your heart be moved every damn time. Root in the place you are. Learn its history, learn its geography, learn its seasons. Sing a lot and dance. Make art, make love, rest luxuriously, eat pie. The world is ending and beginning now. We are surviving now. Let us love, let us connect, let us fight like hell for the dignity of each and all. Let's join now in our sung benediction. There is a love.
We are always together, every step of the way. We are always together. I love you so much. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.